Hey guys, what is going on? McMole2 here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm bringing you a video where we're ranking the Zeta abilities with how useful they are in the arena. You can see that this is the exact same layout that I've used for my rankings for the raid. You've got Tier 1 being your best Zetas, Tier 4 being your worst Zetas. You will also notice I do not have Commander Luke Skywalker, any of the New Hope rework characters and their Zetas in here. That's because they've only been out for about a week and a half. It's still too early to tell just how good they are for the arena, so I can't really rank them yet. But you've got everything else in here, including the Ewoks and their reworks. So we'll go ahead and break down each tier individually. We'll start with Tier 1 being the best. We'll go all the way through down to Tier 4 being the worst Zetas for the arena. But before I go any further, big thank you to everyone who helped me put together this list with feedback and suggestions. So a lot of people over in Team Skunk Republic, the BB-8 Empire Nation and their guilds, and a few individuals like Oblivion from Wallet Warriors. So big thank you to everyone who helped provide feedback and help me put together this list. So let's go ahead and start with Tier 1 and we will go from there. So with Tier 1, these are going to be your Zetas that are absolute best for the arena. These ones make it possible for a team or a character alone to really compete in the top 20. It really makes them part of the meta. So you can see here we have teams like Darth Maul and Qui-Gon Jinn with their leaderships, with them affecting Sith and Jedi respectively, making both those teams incredibly deadly. The Zeta unique for Nihilist, where he adds health down to an enemy every time they start a turn, that allows him to go a lot more with his Force Drain and allows him to annihilate a whole lot faster. Kylo Ren, do we need to say more? His Outrage can give him a ton of protection regeneration. And then you have people like Darth Vader, his Empire abilities, his dots that never go away, R2-D2 with the Zeta on Number Crunch, that gives him a huge boost to his other allies on the team with him, with his additional health and protection and offense, adding into those allies, making them even tougher, especially in teams you add in like with Jedi that I've done videos on before. You have Savage Opress with his Zeta. Every time he takes damage, he gains turn meter. He also gains a heal over time effect. It allows him to be a lot tougher. He doesn't die as fast. He heals back a ton every time he goes, and he's going fast because of his turn meter boost whenever he takes damage. And then you have Barriss with her Zeta on her unique. Every time an ally is critically hit, they heal back 20% of their maximum health. You can see those General Kenobi leads with Zeta Barriss in there. Those teams take forever to kill no matter who you're running. The only way you can really counter them is with a team that doesn't crit. So Zeta Barriss really helps boost the survivability on your team, makes an incredibly tough defensive team to fight. So her Zeta there makes things really hard for a defensive team. And then Thrawn with the Ebb and Flow on his unique, that Zeta really makes it so that whenever he fractures someone, if you're in a good Empire team, that fractured enemy and Thrawn are both never going to be moving. It's really going to help shut down a character in the long run, and that's going to help make your battles so much easier. These Tier 1 Zetas here, these are your absolute best of the best Zetas. These are the ones that you want to go for if you're really looking to boost your team, make them that much stronger. I highly recommend you choose one of these Zetas because these are going to be the ones that really make your team and your characters that much better for the arena. Next up, you have your Tier 2 Zeta abilities. These ones are not as good as your Tier 1s, but they're still above average. They're really good Zetas to have here. You have a lot of leadership abilities in here, like Director Krennic. He gives Empire allies 10% protection every time they score a critical hit. You have Phasma, and her leadership Zeta allows her to really help build up the assists and the damage and the survivability for your First Order team through advantage. And then you have Finn. His leadership Zeta allows your Resistance allies to manipulate the exposes that they already naturally land a lot. It gives them a lot of turn meter boost, gives them cooldown reductions. It's a really nice Zeta if you're running a Resistance team, but be warned, Resistance teams are not good on defense at all. Another leadership ability that you can see here, Chief Chirpa, his leadership Zeta allows Ewok allies that have a 60% chance to call in an assist if they use a special ability. That gives them a nice boost in offense overall. It's going to really help bring up their damage, make them a much more deadly team for offense. And then you have the Jinn Zeta lead, where every time a Rebel ally gains a buff, they regenerate 5% protection. This helps give a lot of survivability to your Rebel team. So if you have a team of Rebels that puts out a lot of buffs like Princess Leia or Chirrut, having that Jinn Zeta lead in there is really going to help boost up your survivability, help them last longer into the fight, deal out more damage. And then you have some uniques like General Veers. His unique gives a lot of turn meter and protection regeneration to Imperial Troopers. So Imperial Troopers are really good under a General Veers lead with that Zeta on his unique. You have the Whirlwind unique for Fulcrum Ahsoka. It gives her 50% armor penetration, it reduces the cooldown, and the attack cannot be evaded. it makes her whirlwind hit that much harder. It makes her a really deadly character to have to fight against. You have Boba Fett with his unique, every time Boba Fett scores a killing blow, he generates 100% protection, and with his execute, he's going to be dealing a lot of damage, and that's going to really help keep him alive longer. And then you have the unique for Grand Moff Tarkin. He gains 20% potency for each debuffed enemy. He's going to get a lot of bonus defense as it is, because he gets a lot of bonus defense from additional potency, and his AoE attack does more damage with more potency. So he's going to be able to take more hits, he's going to be able to deal out a lot more damage. And then finally, you have First Order Stormtrooper here. Every time he uses an ability, he has a 50% chance to call in an assist. This Zeta accounts for not just his attacks and his abilities, but anytime he counters, he has a 50% chance to call in an assist. So that's a really, really good Zeta to have. It's almost tier 1. It's not quite there, but it's definitely one that you can look at. It makes him be able to fit into any team. He could be a very deadly tank, especially if he has advantage, because then he can dispel on his basic. So these are your tier 2 Zetas. Let's go ahead and move on to your tier 3s. And getting here with your tier 3 Zetas, these are the ones that start to be average or below average investment returns. You can see here at the top we have characters like Commander Cody, First Order TIE Pilot, R2-D2 with his combat analysis, and Wicket. All of those really rely on critical hits. Commander Cody and the clone team, they rely on critical hits. First Order TIE Pilot gives him bonus crit and crit damage. First Order TIE Pilot gives him bonus crit chance and crit damage. R2-D2, his Zeta makes it so that light side characters dispel debuffs on themselves when they score critical hits, and Wicket gives health and protection back to Ewoks whenever he scores critical hits. But right now with the meta, we're seeing a lot of anti-crit abilities and synergies with characters like Kenobi and Zeta Barris. You have Rex Leads. A lot of your meta teams are shutting down the critical hits, so these 4 Zetas are really not ones you want to invest in, because they're just not going to give you a lot of return. And then you have 5s here. He gains Terminator whenever an ally takes damage. That Terminator boost is nice, but at the end of the day, he's not dealing much damage in return. He doesn't hit very hard, so you're better off getting other Zetas instead. Paplu, he gains protection back every time he gains a buff. That's really nice for him to have, but at the end of the day, there's other tanks that can do better than him that do the same thing. It's really not one you want to invest in unless you're going for a full Ewok team. You also have Grandmaster Yoda in here with his battle meditation ability. It gives foresight in addition to tenacity up, but the problem is you usually run him in a Qui-Gon Jinn Zeta team as it is with Jedi, so he's always going to be having foresight up. That's just a strength of the Qui-Gon Jinn team, so you really don't need to invest in that Zeta, because there's really no need to invest in it for the foresight when you're already going to be getting it in spades with that Qui-Gon Jinn leadership ability. Rey, she can only do an unresistible daze if she has no debuffs, but debuffs are a part of the game now. Everybody has debuffs, so you're not going to get much there. With Count Dooku, you could get some good investment on him if Zal teams were a huge part of the meta still. And under a Nihilist lead, he's not going to get the protection back whenever he counters. His Zeta gives him 10% protection every time he counters and gives him crit hit immunity. But that protection regen is useless. He'll never get anything under a Nihilist lead. And your Nihilist leads are more of what you want to go for now with your Sith teams. And it also ties in here with the Zeta on Nihilist lead. His Zeta only gives Sith allies bonus health steal. There's not much there for investment. You're better off spending it on something else like his unique. You have Darth Sidious here, his Sadistic Glee. It gives him bonus turn meter, but again, because your Nihilist teams are more prominent now for Sith, he's not going to gain that healing back like he should be. So he's not going to get that healing, but he is going to get the turn meter boost, which is still nice, but without that healing, he's not getting the full benefit. You have Grand Moff Tarkin with his leadership. It gives exposes on characters who fall below 100% health, and it's not resistible. So that's nice to have, but at the end of the day, it's still not as good as your other leads that you have for the Empire, like Palpatine or Darth Vader, anything like that. Grand Admiral Thrawn Zeta lead is here too. Gives 2% protection back every time an Empire ally takes or loses a buff or debuff. So that protection regeneration there is nice, but it's not vastly game-changing like your other Zetas. You can see I have Death Trooper here as well. His Zeta does nicely if he's paired with Krennic, but once you take out Krennic, Death Trooper loses all synergies with his Zeta. So that's really not a good Zeta to invest in unless you want to run full-on with a Krennic lead or any kind of Krennic and Death Trooper synergies. So these are it for the Tier 3. Let's go ahead and go into the Tier 4 abilities, and let's talk about why these ones are not really good for the arena. And with these tier 4 Zeta investments, you're not going to get much return for them. You can see here with Jin and her unique, it gives her immunity to stuns. There's not a lot of characters that can do that, and some of them are unresistible stuns, so she's really not going to get much there. Cassian and his unique, it gives protection up 15% to rebel allies at the start of the match, but it only lasts for 3 turns, and you can't bring it back any other way, so it's not going to last very long. And with the K2SO unique, it gives him 1% max protection every time he takes damage, but the problem is you have to rely on something that can regenerate protection. The best bet is a Jin Zeta lead, and that's hard to swallow, having to require another Zeta investment to make his anywhere near decent. That's why he's in tier 4, because you're just not going to be able to really invest that much with as many Zetas as you have out there. You have Logray with his health and healing to Ewok allies when they score critical hits. Again, reliance on critical hits does not mean much in the long run. You have Pow and Chewie. Their Zetas are pretty bad. You probably already know them by now. 5% turn meter for Pow every time a rebel ally uses a basic attack, so not much there unless you're using maybe a countering Luke lead. Again, too early to tell if that's going to have any usefulness there. Chewie, his Zeta gives him more healing and dispels debuffs on him whenever he uses his roar. Again, not much there because it's really a long cooldown, and his kit's just so useless. You're never going to see a Chewie in the arena, really. You have Luminara. Her leadership Zeta is really confusing. It gives bonus heal over time effect. It's really not a good Zeta leadership investment because there's already better Zeta lead investments out there like Qui-Gon Jinn. Gar Saxon, his Zeta gives Empire allies protection back whenever they counter, but that relies on counters, and he only gives a 50% counter chance as it is. If that was a 100% counter chance, it'd probably be at least somewhat decent. You have Yoda with his leadership that gives turn meter boost to Jedi allies and tenacity, so that whenever they resist a debuff, they gain turn meter. But the problem with that leadership Zeta on Yoda is that you have better leaderships for Jedi as it is, especially with the Qui-Gon Jinn Zeta again. So you're really not going to get much investment there when the Qui-Gon Jinn Zeta just does so much better for your Jedi teams. With Bodhi Rook, his unique gives offense up to a random rebel ally if they didn't have offense up already. Again, it relies on the end of his turn. He's very squishy. He's not going to last very long. It's just not a good Zeta to invest in. With Asajj Ventress, you can see both of her Zetas are here in tier 4. Her leadership ability gives additional turn meter reduction chances to Night Sisters, gives them more turn meter whenever they fall below 100% health. The problem with that is that Night Sister teams as a whole are not strong for the arena. No one runs them because they're just so bad. So it's really a wasted Zeta leadership because you're just never going to run Night Sisters. And then you have your unique Rampage. It gives her additional chance to gain turn meter, gives her more turn meter gain whenever an ally is defeated, increases the buff duration for her. But the problem with that is that you're relying on allies to die. That's not a good Zeta to have. Anytime you have to rely on allies dying for a Zeta to gain power, that's not something you really want to invest in. That's also why you see Stormtrooper here with his Zeta, where it gives him bonus offense for each defeated ally. Again, you're relying on defeated allies. That's not a Zeta you want to invest in, because the more allies you lose, the overall worse you're going to do in your arena matches. That is it for this video, guys. If you all have any questions, feel free to ask down below in the comments. I'll do what I can to answer them. I'm looking at making this a monthly series like I do with the rankings for the raid. So let me know if you guys would like to see more of these more often. As always, guys, feel free to like and share this video, subscribe to my channel for more content in the future, and I will talk to you guys later.